Kathy mentioned that we are going to focus on the mind, the heart, and the action in the hands, right? So we're going to do a lot of that. We're going to talk about the mind, and we're going to learn some information, but we're also going to talk about the heart, and then we're going to touch and feel a few things. How's that sound? So I want to first off say thank you to Laura and Bob for inviting me out. This has been very nice. I've really enjoyed getting to know each of you, at least many of you. I don't want to say each because I'm looking out and I can't even recognize you right now. But I appreciate the chance to be here. Great dinner last night. Some of you are quite the bowlers. That was fun last night. And I've enjoyed the presentations today. And I've really enjoyed the conversations we've had out there in the hallway where you've had some questions. I've tried to help you in that direction, but many of you I said, well, wait till I get to my presentation and then I'll cover it. So hopefully we'll get a lot of those questions answered in the information. If there are questions afterwards, I just want you to know there is no question that you shouldn't ask, okay? So if you have a question after this and you say, I really want to know, please come ask. Okay, there's no question that's going to bother me. I'm not going to be annoyed. I'm not going to say, didn't you listen? Okay, that's not who I am. I want you to feel comfortable with this information. And if I'm obviously have a limited amount of time, so I'm only going to cover, the parts that I think are important, but what's important to you is what's most important. So I say that up front just so that you please, if you have any other lingering questions, come find me. Okay. So let's start here with the PowerPoint, and we are hearing the live feed as well. That just means it's working, right? So that's a good test. First off, I wanted to mention to you is that I got started. This is a little background on my family. I got started in this industry almost 27 years ago, when my wife Darcy and I found out we were finally expecting, and we'd been through lots of procedures and lots of doctors, and we found out that we were having 3 girls. And well, we actually found out we were having 3. We found out the girl thing later, but that 3 started the process that is now 8 girls. And they are the reason that I'm in this industry, because when those 3 babies came home, I very quickly found out this was more than my wife was going to be able to handle on her own, and I needed to quit my job in order to stay in school and have some time at home to help her. And so I was looking for another way to take care of this growing family, and my mother and my father had been using health products that had really helped them. And my dad said, Todd, have you ever considered doing network marketing? And I said, no idea what that is. It turns out that at that time I was working at UPS, and many of my clients that I was in and out of their offices were network marketing companies, and I had no idea there was even a special industry. I just knew they sold a lot of stuff and I had to ship it. But I got started back then when actually the week that the triplets were born. And this has been my form of livelihood and support for the family ever since. My wife has been able to be a mother and be home with these kids, and I've been able to, wherever possible, be at every one of their activities. Now, as you know, I'm here today, so I'm not at any of their activities today, and you all know that process, right? But what happens in this industry is we buy freedom. Do you remember Lennon mentioning that, talking about freedom? Through our efforts, we sacrifice in order to have freedom. And that freedom allows us to do a lot of things that we wouldn't otherwise have to do or be able to do. And so the ability to be able to choose when and where and what we do is a very, very powerful thing. And I mention that to you just to let you know that these girls have taken us a lot of places to a lot of things, and it's because of this industry, because of network marketing and health and wellness that we've been able to do that. And so I am very grateful that we had the triplets, not just because they're great girls, but because it forced me to leave the 9 to 5. It forced me to leave the trading time for money and move into an arena where I could build a residual income. And that's how you truly gain freedom. So you didn't come here to hear all of that, but I wanted to share that. Whoops, I better not skip that. As we go in and we start talking about these health and wellness products, it's very important that I first mention to you that we're not here to diagnose, treat, or prescribe, okay? I'm not here to talk specifically about any disease that we're trying to heal, right, through a product. But what I'm going to talk about is some natural remedies as well as some lifestyle changes that, when implemented, empower the body to heal itself. And we believe wholeheartedly that the body has that ability. Now, I know many of you here at Tori Belle, because I've been listening to the presentations, I've been on the website, Bob even showed me what eyelashes would look like on me last night at dinner. And it takes more than a few eyelashes to fix this. But anyway, what I want you to understand is that what we're talking about now does matter. Now, you might be most excited about what you're able to do with these amazing eyelashes, what you're able to do with your amazing cosmetic products, and I am not trying to counter that at all, because I'm excited about that as well. What I want to talk about is something that supports what you're already doing. Okay, does that make sense? Now, that leads to the next slide, and that is, why does health matter? Why does talking about this matter? And I'm open to some suggestions if someone wants to raise their hand. Why does this information we're going to talk about now, why does it even matter? Health is wealth. I love that. Thank you. Okay, so it's not just the number of years, but the quality of life in those years. Very good. I like that. Any other thoughts? You do, don't you? And we want to make sure that how we appear and look on the outside is also going on the inside. So one of the things that we've understood and learned is that despite the fact that we have some amazing technological breakthroughs, despite the fact that we can produce more food today than we ever have been able to in the past, despite the fact that we have excess of these things available to us, we have experienced an alarming increase of disease. Some of us maybe don't realize that or notice it until you stop and think about it. But if you think for a second about when you were a kid versus today, do you know more or less people with chronic disease? Do you know more people who are struggling with the health in your church group than when you were a kid? The numbers are actually astronomical. So just to reinforce that, I'm going to go through a few statistics, and I'm going to go rather quickly if the computer keeps up with the clicker. In the 1960s, they forecasted what was going to happen to the population and chronic disease. And they predicted that it would be 4% or less of the population that would develop chronic disease. Any idea what the reality is today? Those are all really good guesses. 60% plus of the population today have at least one chronic disease. And the reality is that 42% have two or more. So this is not a small difference from what was forecasted. It's a huge difference, isn't it? We're talking many, many fold. So just to reinforce that, I'm going to go real quick through some of these. But we've had a 41% increase in deaths from heart disease, 45% increase in asthma, 50% increase in digestive disorders, 50% increase in allergies, 250% increase in epilepsy, 300% increase in diabetes, 300% difficulty in fertility, 783% increase in Alzheimer's. Do you know the disease wasn't even named 40 years ago? So, you know, this is one that's really, really shocking. And 4,200% increase in autism. Now, we could name a whole bunch of diseases. It's not just the ones that I mentioned there. This is just to give us a sampling and an indication. You could pretty much pick any chronic disease that's out there, and we've seen an astronomical increase over the last 30 to 40 years. So why is this happening, and is there anything we can do about it? So let's think for a second. What is the same and what is the different from then to today? Again, volunteers. Yes, hand back here. The food. So how has the food changed? Okay, so we've in order to produce more, right, in order to increase yields, we've changed some of the seeds. We've done this genetically modified organism. We've also changed some of the processes of how we grow them and where we grow them. Chemical fertilizers have become the mainstay. So there's a lot of things we've done there. Also, enormous introduction of agricultural chemicals, right? Pesticides, herbicides, things like that. Okay, any other changes? Yeah, so these chemicals that we're adding to processed foods, the percentage of raw or fresh compared to processed foods has radically changed for the American diet. And so, you know, why have we shifted to processed foods? Any ideas? That's right, convenience, longer shelf life, right? I mean, how long does the breakfast cereal last in your cupboard compared to the produce you put in your fridge? Yeah, there's a huge difference in how long it lasts, right? Shelf life is the key for a manufacturer to be able to really maximize their profits because they don't have any spoilage. Fresh fruit and fresh produce obviously is the opposite. Any others? Sorry? Family dynamics. What do you mean by that? Great. So we're going more with prepackaged convenience meals, right? There's less sitting down and having a home-cooked meal than there used to be. We're eating a lot of fast food, that type of thing. And so, yes, a lot of changes in the diet. There's also this introduction of all sorts of chemicals, not just agriculturally, but in our homes, in cleaning products, personal care products. And so we're actually being inundated with these things. So again, this wasn't the purpose of coming here, right, was to learn about what's happened to our environment, but I present the problem so that we can understand the solution. Okay, so the reasons for this can be tied to, and this isn't an exhaustive list, but the toxins we're exposed to, the inflammation that is increased because of the food supply and the toxins, our digestive issues have increased, and then the decrease of essential nutrients in the food we eat. And I'll just show you a few graphs to kind of support this as we go along. So there are currently 36 plus neurotoxic chemicals that are used in the agricultural world. They're approved for putting on the foods that we eat. And so these all can cause toxicity, and one of the common factors or resultants of that toxicity is inflammation. Inflammation first hits, obviously, as soon as that stuff hits the mouth, and then all the way down the digestive tract. And when our digestive system is inflamed, what happens to the amount of nutrients we can take in? It's compromised, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, glyphosate. If you're familiar with the glyphosate discussion as far as what that's doing to the produce, they're finding higher and higher glyphosate content in the produce that we eat because of what we're putting on the crops and in the soils. So this is an interesting, I have a series of graphs here to show the increase of the toxins in relation to the increase of certain diseases. So the toxins we're exposed to and the number of these, what we call chronic illnesses. And I'll go real quick just because it's just more of a visual. But that was celiac disease. This is intestinal infections. Do you see the correlations here? Autism. I mean, that one almost mirrors perfectly, doesn't it? Dementia. Diabetes. So what is inflammation, and is it all bad? We have to understand that inflammation is actually a natural response, right? Has anyone twisted their ankle or bumped your knee? What happens? It swells up, that's right. That is a form of inflammation. The immune system has been notified because something odd happened. The immune system has been notified it needs to go start working on that problem. And so the first thing it does is it initiates an inflammatory response. And that slows everything down, creates congestion. We all know that when we're driving on the freeway and an accident happens, right? Congestion occurs. Everything slows down. The flashing lights come, right? And what do? They come, they identify what's going on, isolate the problem, clean things out of the way. And the hope is that then they can get that traffic moving as quick as possible again. Well, our body is no different. That's a simplistic analogy, but it's actually very, very similar. The the immune system goes out, slows everything down, creates a congestion so it can identify what's the damage, what's the infection, what's the harmful chemical, whatever it is, so it becomes inflamed. In that process, it sends back feedback as to what's been determined, and then the body sends out either the warriors or the SWAT team, or it sends out whatever tools and method that it has to do with and repair the problem. Okay, so that's kind of this inflammatory response. That is not a problem until what? It's either too much and so everything is inflamed, or the immune system is so overburdened and can't communicate clearly through the nervous system, so that it's getting bad feedback and it sends in the wrong troops, or it sends in the wrong treatment. And so then what happens is the immune system has to say, well, what do we do now? And it just sends in everything, right? And that's when we get these things that are called autoimmune disorders, right? So if you talk about an autoimmune disease, think about that concept for a second. How do they explain an autoimmune disease to you? They say your body is attacking itself. Now, does that make sense? A creation of God attacking itself. Okay, I don't think that is a design that your body would attack itself. What's happening is there's a malfunction. And so the body it doesn't know how to fix the problem, so it sends in everything. It sends in the troops, it sends in the SWAT team, it sends in the killer T cells, right? And so even healthy cells get attacked in that effort. And so if we take, for example, what happened with this last pandemic, did you ever hear of anyone really dying from the virus, or were they dying from the body's inflammatory response to the virus? Do you see the difference? So there's a number of studies. I'll show one here in a minute, but there's been a number of studies that shows that the people whose immune systems were healthy and where the communication was clear in that process, they didn't have the same cytokine storm. You've heard that term, right? With a cytokine. They didn't have that happen in their body. Why did some people have an overreactive immune response or inflammatory response and some people didn't? Well, that's what we're going to talk about, is what can we do to make sure our immune system reacts properly? And the things we're going to talk about are what we call anti-inflammatory. So research is showing that chronic inflammation may be the common factor in many, if not most, diseases. In fact, you could probably name any disease and we'll say that is inflammation of this tissue, that is inflammation of this organ, that is inflammation of this part of the body. Chronic inflammation is linked to numerous diseases. According to Johns Hopkins, things like Alzheimer's, arthritis, lupus, cancer, diabetes, heart disease, stroke, depression, pretty much the list goes on and on. It's almost exhaustive. The digestive system becoming inflamed, we actually absorb nutrients through something called villi. They're like the little tiny carpet fibers, right, that are on the inside of our intestines. First thing that dies off when we have an inflamed digestive system is that inflammation squeezes off the blood flow to these villi and they break off and die. So it's devastating to your ability to take in healthy nutrients if your digestive system is chronically inflamed. So one of the first things we have to do is we have to say, okay, how do we bring that inflammation down and how do we repair those villi? These are just more graphics to show what that happens. So poor digestion is the base of it. One of the reasons is because we end up deficient of essential nutrients. Essential nutrients are nutrients your body can't make itself, so we're dependent upon consuming them to get them, and if you don't have them, it's linked to a disease. Okay, so those are what we call essential, and we notice that when people have these digestive disorders, we end up with nutritional deficiencies. And there's little warning signs. Okay, any of you are familiar with the warning lights on your car? Okay, so you're driving down the road and that oil light comes on saying that you're out of oil. What do? You pull out the masking tape and you put a little piece of masking tape over that light and you keep going, right? All is well. We do that though, don't we, with our health? when we see a warning sign or something happening, then we know that it's a sign of something internally going wrong. Sometimes what do? We pop a pill, right? We find something that will mask it or cover it up. So what we're going to mention here are just a few warning signs that should be cluing us into some potential deficiencies inside. Things like eyelid twitches, that's a muscle spasm, leg cramps, ringing in the ears, stiff shoulders, joint pain, cavities. Most of us just tolerate these or take an Advil, right? The idea, though, is to say, wait, why is that happening? And if I do something nutritionally, if I do something, to bring inflammation down, do these occurrences decrease? And if they do, well, then you're on the right track. Craving for something sweet, feeling hungry even when physically full. Anyone done that? All right, I just had a big meal. Why am I still hungry? Right? And most likely it's because you either didn't have enough nutrition in that food or that day, or you couldn't absorb the nutrition out of it anyway because you were so inflamed. Do you ever have times where you just can't remember a word? Right? The synapse isn't happening. Call your kids by the wrong names multiple times in a row. How about this feeling of being bloated, constipation, or diarrhea, right? These are all just warning signs. And they're all due to chronic inflammation. The inflammation came, the body couldn't resolve the problem, so the inflammation stayed. Okay, so you understand the problem. Now what can we do about it? Inflammation is called the secret killer. It shows up in all sorts of disorders all around the health industry. And with what we're so excited to make available to you here at Tori Belle is this botanical blend of using hemp, ginger, turmeric, and muscadine. These are 4 of the most powerful natural anti-inflammatories. Now, they do lots of other things as well. Like these are powerful antioxidants. These are powerful nutrient-packed compounds. But as far as inflammation, they're legendary. Hemp is known, and there's all sorts of clinical studies backing its ability to reduce inflammation primarily in the central nervous system, everything throughout the nerves in the body. That's what it's most researched on. That's why you'll hear it often recommended for epileptics, Lou Gehrig's disease, ALS, multiple sclerosis, muscular dystrophy. These are all related to neurological disorders. Ginger. Been researched and used for thousands of years to help with digestion. Now it does many other things. It's antibacterial, antiviral, all these things. But ginger, there is nothing we know of that has ever been identified in science that rebuilds villi in the intestine. So if damage has occurred due to chronic inflammation in the digestive system, what's one of the most powerful things we have? Whether it's a pharmaceutical or natural, guess what? There is nothing like ginger to rebuild those villi. Turmeric, whoops, I clicked that too soon and I held it down, so now we're really off. Turmeric. Anyone heard of turmeric? What's the active compound that gets talked about in turmeric? Have you heard of curcumin? Right? Curcumin, that is the active compound in it. Most turmeric out there is really high in 1, maybe 2, what are called curcuminoids. That's a fun word, isn't it? Curcuminoids. Those are different types of curcumin that are found in turmeric. So one of the things that we're so excited about to bring to you is a turmeric that is different than any other turmeric you'll see out there. Because instead of being high in 1 or 2 curcuminoids, we're high in 16 to 20 different curcuminoids. And we have over 100 different curcuminoids found in this particular root. So where one was good and helped with inflammation, if you can have a broad spectrum of different curcuminoids, it's like a magic puzzle piece, right? Any of you do puzzles here? Do you get frustrated when there's one spot and you just cannot find that piece? Well, these are adaptogenic type nutrients where it's like you have a pair of scissors and you can modify that piece so it'll fit in the place. The body can take what it needs and go do it. Muscadine. Now this is a newer discovery. This is only the last 8 to 10 years. Most of the time when I say that word, people say muscahoo, because it's a new word. It's a weird word. But the muscadine is now considered the most powerful, potent superfood that you can find on the planet. And the amazing thing is we don't have to leave our country to find it. It actually only grows, as far as we have found so far, here in the United States. Some of you I talked to who live in the North Carolina, Georgia, southeastern United States are familiar with this growing naturally behind your house in the woods. When the original explorers, European explorers, came here, they found the Native Americans using these for lots of remedies, natural remedies. They also found them using them as a food supply. They were drying them and using them kind of like a raisin as a snack that they could consume all year round. It wasn't until about 10 years ago that the medical community started to research this, and it all happened because of an anonymous gentleman who lives in North Carolina that had a chronic illness and was about to die. And he'd tried everything that the medical community had to offer, and it was a friend of his, longtime friend, that says, have you ever tried muscadines? And he said, what, you mean that stuff out back? He said, yeah. And he brought him a poultice that he had made from seeds and skins, and he had extracted the phenolics that were found in there, and he gave it to him to try. And it was just an anecdotal thing. There was no science behind it, but the guy was like, well, I don't have any other options, so he tried it. Now, this gentleman recovered completely from his illness. And he was so impressed by that, he donated 20 and now another 5, so $25 million to Wake Forest University to research and find out what is in this fruit. And so you can go Wake Forest University, type in muscadine, or go to pubmed.gov, type in muscadine, and you'll see there's over 26 clinical studies already published on this fruit that have just come out in the last 8 to 10 years. And what they're finding is it basically has all of the known powerful nutrients that you have in all the different berries, all the different grapes, all the different fruits and vegetables. Almost everything that you say, hey, carrots are good for this, and broccoli is good for this, and kale is good for this, they all show up in the profile of the muscadine. It's an absolutely amazing superfruit. We work with Texas A&M who have used it as a food scientist study, and the doctor will stand up and he'll just say, name a fruit or vegetable, and he'll say, yep, that one's known for this, and guess what? It has this form of it in the muscadine. It's really an amazing fruit. So what we do is we take this blend and we put it into our system. To tell you about hemp, I'm going to invite you to go and look through the material that's on your website. There's a whole explanation on hemp. This gentleman, Dr. Stuart Titus, is the world-renowned expert on this. He's the one that's argued before the World Health Organization, the National Institutes of Health. He's the one that argued before the FDA. He's used as an expert witness in many court cases in order to increase access to hemp-extracted products. But he is the one who formulates the products at Kannaway. He's the one who founded the company, and just a wonderful gentleman. I look forward to you meeting him. I got to spend a few hours with him a couple weeks ago as we did some recordings. But he'll tell you that not only is hemp good for you, but it's actually essential. You remember my explanation of essential nutrients? So he's putting forth arguments to the National Institutes of Health right now for cannabinoids, and that's another fun word, just like muscadine, cannabinoids, which are the identified active ingredients in hemp. He's actually got legislation being put forth to recognize them as essential nutrients. Again, meaning our bodies have to have them or we get sick. A deficiency of these nutrients leads to disease, and we can't make enough of them, so we have to consume them. So I invite you to learn more about that, but just understand that we've identified now an entire system in the body that runs solely on cannabinoids. So you have an immune system, you have a cardiovascular system, muscular system, all these things. They've discovered now that this system is what they call a governing system, and it's interconnected to all of those systems. If you look at that graphic, you'll see that the endocannabinoid system helps to regulate the central nervous system, the digestive system, the immune system, the muscular and skeletal systems, the digestive system, the cardiovascular system. You go down the line, there are more receptor sites on this system than any other system in the body. And what does it use in those receptor sites to make them work? Cannabinoids. So if we don't have the cannabinoids, that system primarily, I would say substantially in our country, that system is starved and not working. And that's, when I showed you all those statistics, especially of neurological diseases, a lot of that, Dr. Titus will tell you, is related to the fact that, 83 years ago, all cannabis plants, including hemp, were outlawed for any consumption, use, production, extraction, anything. And so we have almost 3 generations now of monitoring what happens to a population when they are starved of cannabinoids. And now with the recent Farm Bill, hemp has been re-allowed for us to grow, manufacture, put in feeds, extract for products, so forth. So anyway, a lot you can learn about hemp, as I did, but Kannaway set up, the triple lab tested, they set up the U.S. hemp certification, the only hemp-derived product, CBD product, included in the physician's desk reference where doctors can prescribe from. So one of the things we're very proud of is that we can guarantee exactly what we say on the label is in the product. And we have all the certifications and testing because it's our fields, it's our laboratories, we send off to the third-party labs. That's not what you get when you go and pick up a CBD product at a flea market or on the corner or someone's got a sign on their car. So you can be very, 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 very confident that you're not going to get something in there you don't want, which is possible with cannabis products as well, and that you absolutely are going to get what you're after. All right. You can learn more about the product line. There's some things we can send you to teach you about this, but just understand we've got the raw products, which are the green. And if anyone is doing a regular drug testing, you don't want to be taking the green. You won't get any sort of psychoactive effect from it. However, it will show up trace amount in a drug test. So green is as close to the plant as possible. Gold has been filtered. So it's below the level of detectability, so there won't be any THC showing up on any test. And then the blue are the isolates, and that's where, rather than having a plant-derived complex, they've isolated singular cannabinoids, and that's going to be a new science because this is relatively new. We're the only company that can provide a CBG extract. CBG is the newly identified cannabinoid that helps with mood and anxiety and attitude. It's a wonderful, just a little dropper that helps in that area. We have the CBN, which helps with increased sleep. So you can take it in a dropper or a capsule or a gummy before you go to bed, and it doesn't put you to sleep, but once you are asleep, you stay asleep and you wake up refreshed without any hangover or grogginess. It's amazing. So those are some things that you can get to know, and again, that information is on the website. Eddie, would you mind cueing that first video for me? Eddie was so helpful to get these videos going. This is a 2-minute video that'll give you a little background on the formation of Kannaway.
When Medical Marijuana Inc. became the first publicly traded cannabis company, we challenged ourselves to become the world's premier phytocannabinoid provider. We innovated an online marketplace and direct sales program that cannot be matched. Our success as a company derives from our purpose to help people live better and create a more sustainable world. We sought out the most qualified farmers on the planet and developed the ideal cultivars for large-scale hemp production. In doing so, we were the first to develop a cannabidiol-based product line. We were also the first to standardize the concentration of cannabidiol in each of our products, simply because it had never been done before. In the beginning, there were no guidelines to ensure a product's quality, so we developed a multi-tier lab testing procedure because it was the right thing to do for our customers. In those early days, the technology to produce cannabidiol on the scale we envisioned simply did not exist. So we invented it, becoming the first company to create an integrated CBD pipeline in the process. We developed the largest, most reliable source of phytocannabinoid products for the United States and dozens of countries around the world. We have also led the way in research. We were the first to obtain a license from the National Institutes of Health to develop cannabinoids as a drug treatment for degenerative brain diseases like CTE. This research opens the door to therapies for several other neurological disorders. You can see the impact of this movement all across the globe. In Paraguay and Puerto Rico, ours were the first phytocannabinoid-based products to be licensed as medically approved treatments. In Brazil, one little girl's need for cannabidiol created the first ever government subsidies for a phytocannabinoid product. Now, our hemp oil is being prescribed in Brazil for epilepsy, Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, as well as for chronic pain and other conditions. In Mexico, the law was actually rewritten to allow the use of cannabidiol to treat a young autistic girl's seizures. To meet Mexico's strict regulation, we created the first completely THC-free hemp oil product on the market. From clean biofuels to building materials, hemp's possibilities are limitless. With it, we can change the status quo. We're proud of the things we've accomplished and the lives that we've touched. While many follow in our footsteps, we continue to forge a new path to health and wellness.
Thank you, Eddie. So there's an explanation on the hemp and why we're so excited about it and excited for you all to have access and to share with your teams. Are the slides working? All right, so that's that study. I invite you to go look at this, but this is a study where they actually tested animals, they tested human cells, and then actually human patients with the use of CBD and the SARS Corona 2 and multiple variants. And actually, the conclusion of the study was that had this been available at the time that the breakout happened in Wuhan, we probably wouldn't have had a pandemic. Amazing study that you can go and research. I mentioned ginger and I mentioned turmeric. I'll go through these slides really quickly, but we're very excited about the fact that we can provide the most potent, unique form, medicinal grade ginger and turmeric. It's not the spice you have in your cupboard. These are rare, unique heirloom roots that were found in the jungles of Fiji. And they are now, the roots are not allowed to leave the island. They're hand cultivated, of course, no chemicals, fed by the Fijian rain and the Fijian sun, and harvested, dried there on the island. And we get those very potent powders, and that's what we're able to put in the products that we all use. So, rather than just what you see in the clinical studies, we can expect even better results because we have much higher levels of these actives in them. I told you about the muscadine. I'm going to click through this very quickly because of time. But if you're ever wondering how does it compare, not just from anti-inflammatory standpoint, but from a standpoint of antioxidants, you've probably heard of some of these superfruits, things like mangosteen, acai, blueberry, noni juice. The muscadine is absolutely amazing. Now, muscadine has not gained a lot of popularity prior to now because it has a really thick skin and large bitter seeds. And so to eat a muscadine, those of you who know, you bite through that skin, you suck the juice out, and then what do? You spit those skins and seeds out on the ground. Well, the research that Wake Forest University did, they found that 90% of the nutrition is in those seeds and skins we've been putting back in the ground. And so the products that are made available to us, that's showing over 100 different antioxidants and so forth. But the products that we have available to us is a freeze-dried skins and seeds in a capsule. And so we're able to get the benefit of it all year round, and we don't have to be sucking and spitting in order to get it. And so that's a very easy way to take it. Now, the next thing with the muscadine is something called tocotrienol. And again, go do the research, go to pubmed.gov, or even just Google, type in T3s or tocotrienol. It's a recently discovered vitamin E, but it's a supercharged vitamin E. You've probably heard what vitamin E does for the skin topically and what it does for the body. It's one of the essential nutrients. Tocotrienols have not been available to the public because there is no marketably viable source. You can get them, but you use like truckloads of different produce in order to produce even one dose. Whereas the discovery is the muscadine seed is loaded with them. And I brought a little display to show you. This is a little thing, and I'll have it out on the table, but those are muscadine seeds. And you can get about 4 seeds from one grape. So if I don't know how many mathematicians we have in here, but you can kind of guess how many grapes it takes to make, because that right there cold presses down into 1 bottle of oil. Now, this oil is unique because it's completely safe and recommended both topically and orally. So we have all sorts of amazing stories and results from this. And again, universities, multiple, Clemson, Southern Florida. I mean, the studies are abound. There's like 6 that are undergoing right now research on T3s because they're just newly available in the marketplace from the muscadine seed. So you can go look those up. But what we would like to do now is show you a quick 2-minute video on what happens when people start putting muscadine seed oil in and on their body. Eddie, could you cue that up?
This right here, it's been here for 400 years and nobody knew about it. I had like leftover acne blemishes on my face and I used the oil. I tried it and I committed to using it every day for a week just to see what would happen.
I began applying it to my skin.
So I still had a scar that was from here really dark. I started using it twice daily. I started pulling up selfies that I had sent them and I did it side by side and I was shocked.
Only thing I did was incorporate a few drops into my skin regime morning and night.
When we got this product, I was using about 7 different kinds of oils because I am an oil girl. And all I did was I moved all of those away from my vanity and I used one thing.
It's in the kitchen, it's in the bathroom, it's in my purse.
Nobody's talked about the fat loss part of it. I take it with every meal. Some of the scarring that I had around my eye, it was now not even visible. Within 2 weeks, it all cleared up. Your lashes are the longest I've seen them. They've all grown in. You've never had this many lashes. And I was like, really?
Just using this twice a day, not only has my skin changed and my wrinkles and everything else, but I now have eyebrows and eyelashes and I have to trim my eyebrows. I haven't trimmed my eyebrows in 20 years. It's just the most amazing thing I've seen.
I noticed I was using a lot less foundation and people were stopping me that I hadn't seen in a while and saying, oh my gosh, Gigi, what about your skin? So for a girl that wasn't really blessed naturally with beautiful skin, that has been a great benefit to me.
I just turned 58. At 58, and people really don't know how old I am.
My skin, my face, I had no makeup on.
I've lost blemishes, scars that I've dealt with for years.
And the scar has cleared up considerably. We can barely notice.
It helps you from the inside out.
I went from 28 to 34 to 38 to 41 and 44 this morning.
Within 7 days, you're seeing results, real results.
Our internal, our insides are healthier.
Listen, this is life-changing.
All right. Well, I am out of time. My goodies that I brought up here are going to be back at the table, so you'll have to come back there and try a CBD gummy. Try this amazing anti-inflammatory salve that you can place wherever it is. It brings down the inflammation and the pain subsides. I'd also like you to come and try some of the oil. Put a drop on the back of one hand, rub it in, give it a couple minutes, and then compare how they feel one versus the other. You'll be amazed just in those quick little demos. But our hope is that this supports you in everything that you're doing right now. I hope that all of you and your teams and your customers have the same sorts of testimonials that we've experienced so far as you implement this into the protocol. Not just because we're trying to short circuit something. These are whole food nutritional supplies. This is giving the body the ability to reduce the inflammation, repair and rebuild itself from the inside and the outside, and it should go right in concert with everything you're already doing and be a support to you to have even more very profitable businesses and very good results. Thank you very much.